One of the things that we have continuously talked about on this channel is the fact that once again Boris Johnson isn't releasing the Russia report because, as I highly suspect and many others start to suspect, there are top level Tories, even Tory MPs sitting in seats that if that report comes out, there is a high chance that they will face a loud and open investigation and potentially lose their seats. Not only that, we could face a potential situation where there is enough evidence to suggest that the last election should just be rerun because of the Russian interference and meddling. Now, why are we saying that? Because, believe it or not, the official line from the government has changed. So, UK ministers will no longer claim no successful examples of Russian interference. The change of the official line is the first admission that the Kremlin may have distorted UK elections. Ministers have been told that they can no longer claim that there have been no successful examples of Russian disinformation affecting UK elections, after the apparent hacking of an NHS dossier seized on by Labour during the last campaign. The dropping of this old line is the first official admission of the impact of the Kremlin's efforts to distort Britain's political process, and comes after 3 years of the government's refusal to engage publicly with the threat. The Cabinet Office source confirmed that the position had been quietly changed while an investigation into the alleged hacking of the 451-page cache of emails from a special advisor's personal email account by the security service concludes. Boris Johnson and his predecessor as Prime Minister, Theresa May, have both appeared reluctant to discuss Kremlin disinformation, with Johnson refusing to allow a report on Russian infiltration in the UK to be published before the election. Versions of the "no successful examples" statement were regularly deployed in response to allegations of Russian interference in the Brexit referendum, to the frustration of MPs who believe a full investigation is necessary. Officials said the revised position about Russian interference was set out by Earl Howe, the Deputy Leader of the House of Lords, in a parliamentary answer earlier this year, when he was asked if there were plans to investigate interference by foreign governments in December's election. The peer said that the government was determined to protect the integrity of the democratic process in the UK. As you would expect, the government examines all aspects of the electoral process following the election, including foreign interference, and that work is ongoing, he said. Stephen Kinnock, a Labour MP, said that the government was being slow in acknowledging that the disinformation threat from Russia, from hacking of the NHS emails to the St. Petersburg troll factories and bot farms, it's clear that the Kremlin is pursuing a deliberate strategy of online disinformation and the manipulation that is undermining our democracy. Security sources said that the Russian strategy of hack and leak and disinformation and misinformation were just the first. Was the first that came to prominence with the hack of the Democratic emails in the run-up to the 2016 US presidential election that handed Donald Trump victory, and it was becoming widespread internationally. Last month, Foreign Office said that Russia's GRU spy agency had carried out a series of large-scale disruptive cyber attacks in Georgia in an attempt to undermine Georgian sovereignty, to sow discord and disrupt the lives of ordinary Georgian people. But the strongly words in support of our ally in the Caucasus, ministers had been reluctant to publicly call out any Russian disinformation efforts in the UK, as there had been little public acknowledgement of the NHS hack during the election, first reported by The Guardian. The scale of the Russian threat will be examined in a long-awaited report on the Kremlin infiltration into British politics from the Independent Intelligence and Security Committee, which cannot be published until Downing Street appoints a new set of members following election. Earlier this week, it emerged that among those in the frame were the error-prone former Transport Secretary Chris Grayling and recently sacked Environment Minister Theresa Villas. The NHS emails are believed to have been hacked from an advisor's personal Gmail account and were disseminated online via Reddit under the headline, "Great Britain is practically standing on her knees working on a trade agreement with the US." Initially ignored, the documents covering 6 rounds of the UK-US trade talks were eventually picked up by Labour from the Post and producing during a dramatic press conference by Jeremy Corbyn, who said that they showed the NHS was on the table in the negotiations. Following an investigation, Reddit concluded, "We believe this was part of a campaign that has been reported as an ongoing originating from Russia, and said that it bore the hallmarks of the earlier secondary infection disinformation operation, which was exposed by Facebook in 2018. So there you go. Will we have a rerun of elections? Will we see seats that were maybe close to marginal, maybe have re-elections? I doubt it. As I've said, unfortunately, because of the current situation we have in the UK, the May elections have been postponed for a year, which, again, well, I just said unilaterally, all these Tories that won seats in what were like traditional Labour heartlands would not suddenly turn blue, because many of these people got what they wanted from Boris Johnson's promise. So there is no reason for them to vote blue again. So you're going to have Tory MPs that have complete Labour-dominated councils and mayorships and whatever. And I fully expect that to be the case. And yes, it's been pushed a year down the line, and I agree with that decision, with the whole situation is going on, but I guarantee you that will be the case. These people aren't going to go and start voting blue all of a sudden, because Boris Johnson hasn't really done a lot for them. Not only that, voting in a Conservative council, as has been shown many times, all these councils do is just implement austerity again and again, but on a more local, even more severe level. But there you go. And remember, the first council ever to go bankrupt was a Tory council that implemented a really, really harsh austerity regime on its services, and as a result, it went bankrupt. But there you go. That's the Tories for you, so nothing new there, really.